Hello, followers. It's been a long time coming, but we're finally here. Fairy Tale Wiki Twitter Talk is kicking off its 2021 season. As you remember from last year, we brought you interviews with Fairy Tale fans from all over the world with various hobbies, and we talked about what makes them a fan of the series. We had a great time, so we're here to do it again. But rather than wait for people to apply, we decided we wanted to reach out to some of our followers and ask if they were interested in being part of our project. And much to our happiness, we received an overwhelmingly positive response. And one of those positive responses was from Daphne. She's a cosplayer that some of you may know if you're active on Twitter, Tumblr, or other social media platforms. She's been a Fairy Tale fan for years, and she's been very involved in the fandom ever since. So it was definitely great for us that she was happy to be part of this project. So I'm very happy to introduce her. So, Daphne, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm pretty fine, thank you.
And thank you for being part of this. We really appreciate it. We're definitely excited to get to know you and talk about what makes you a fan of the series. So let's just jump right into it. How did you become a fan of the fairy tale series?
Yeah, I really had to think back about the time I started Fairy Tale. I remember it was in high school, and I had no friends for a while due to various reasons, and I decided to join the people in school that just were sitting with their Nintendos and just being nerds, basically. And I thought they might be really good friends. They could be really good friends. So I joined them, and one of them actually kept drawing fairy tale guild marks in my diary. And I kept saying, "What does it mean?" And she kept saying, "Oh, it means friendship." And after a while, she showed up in school with a tattoo of the same emblem. And I still was like, "What does it mean?" And she was like, "Well, it means friendship." But I still didn't know where it came from. And I was looking for an anime to start because I was only watching Pokemon and I wanted to see more anime. And I found out that that symbol actually came from the series Fairy Tale. So I was like, shall I start watching it? And she was like, yeah, definitely. And I started watching it, and that became the trigger for my obsession with anime. But it has ever been has ever been my favorite anime of all time.
That's very interesting because it's a story I heard quite a lot last year that people would tell me, oh, they weren't really, popular in school. They were having a hard time in their social life. And once they found Fairy Tale, it really opened them up to a wider community and B, more acceptance because it's just a series that's really focused on the themes of friendship and camaraderie and working together. So that was something that really brought people out of a very difficult place. So would you say that was similar for you?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I had friends, but I never really understood what they meant to me. And when they left me, I realized that people should be there for you. That's the meaning of friendship. And when I had my new friend group that I met through Fairy Tale, actually, and became stronger friends with because of Fairy Tale, I started to realize that's not about how many people you have around you and what they do for you, but it's just them being there, and no matter what happens.
Absolutely, and that's something the series really tries to encapsulate in its messages. So, turning our attention to the series for a bit, who is your favorite character in the series? This is a very generic question, but I feel like it's also pretty important to ask.
Yeah. This question was also asked by me by Hiro Mashima himself. And he was rather surprised as well because I have a very controversial favorite character. My favorite is Mest, and a lot of people are like, yeah, they have. Not everyone likes him. Let's keep it that way. But I don't know. It's just very interesting. Has a super interesting background. Has super cool powers. He's an extremely loyal character to his friends, to the guild, to his master. Yeah, I think he's at least a very interesting character to write as well in fan fiction.
That's definitely not an answer I've ever heard before. Most people will never say Mest for their favorite character. In fact, some people will even say that he's their least favorite character in the series. So that's definitely a unique opinion. So certainly credit to you for being willing to, diverge from the popular narrative of fairy tale best characters. And in terms of like that being asked by Mashima as a question, we will definitely get back to that later on in the interview. So I'd like to just flip that around for a second. Who is your least favorite character in the series?
Oh, that's hard to say. Like, I have some characters that aren't particularly bad, but they're just cringy. Like, I have that with Ichiya. Ichiya's fun, but he's like major cringe. So every time he's on screen, I'm like, he's funny, but he's very cringy.
Well, I think you're right about that. It's definitely a character who's meant to be cringe. I mean, you can see it in the way he's designed and this weird thing he has about wearing perfume. It's strange, but that's understandable.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, Ichi and Mest are two characters who actually debuted a little bit later on into the series. They weren't there for the first, 50 or more episodes. So, what really got you into the series story-wise? Like, was it story or was it characters or was it animation or something else?
I think it's something that I think the whole vibe that there is to it, like the opening song, the original soundtracks, the voice actors are amazing. I started in dub, but I ended in watching both sub and dub. And the dedication of all voice actors, and I think I'm speaking for many when I say I actually kept watching, like binging, because of the ships in the first place. Because you see some development, you're like, ooh, I want to keep watching. And but you stay for the story and for all the characters, actually, because the characters are very relatable and everyone has a favorites or multiple favorites that you can relate to and yeah, fangirl about.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely something I've heard a lot about that people got into Fairy Tale for the characters and then the shipping kind of follows naturally, which is totally understandable. That's just how anime and actually really most media tend to work. So when it comes to the story, what is your favorite story arc within it?
Oh, that's a good one. I actually really like the Eclipse arc, and Tenru Island's also a favorite of mine. And yeah, the Eclipse arc was really fun. Like the Eclipse arc is a very favorite of mine because the opening songs are really fun. Like still replay them every day, multiple times because yeah, I just like them way too much. And I really liked the story in it. Like it's very hard to understand the whole time traveling thing, and it took me multiple rewatches and rereadings of the manga to finally understand what's going on. And it's just yeah, it's a really nice arc.
Okay, good that you clarified that it was the manga that you were referring to, because I was about to question whether you were referring to the anime's Eclipse Celestial Spirits arc. And I was going to say that's again not a very popular topic. So I was going to be like, wow, you really like to have unpopular opinions, don't you?
Yeah, I do apparently. Yeah.
Which is totally acceptable. I'm quite familiar with having unpopular opinions myself.
Yeah.
that's there's literally a reason that they called me the king of uncool, but that is a story for another time. And it's not my interview.
I was definitely referring to the like the eclipse after the Grand Magic Games, not the Celestial Spirits Rebellion.
Good to know. I'm sure a lot of people will be happy to know that. Now, flipping that around a bit, maybe this is going to be the answer, but what is your least favorite arc in the series?
Oh, that's I think that one is also controversial because I was not a huge fan of the Adalas arc, and yeah, I liked it. Like all arcs are great, but in Adalas, at the end of Adalas, not that much has changed. Like if Mr. Gun would not have stayed, it would basically be filler almost.
I don't think that's a very controversial opinion. I think a lot of people don't really like the Endless arc because it is, for the most part, a very slow arc, and it does seem to really deviate away from the core cast of Fairy Tail and kind of focus on Happy in particular. And ignoring the fact that I don't actually like Happy as a character, there's really not enough in his character to make an arc out of. I think it would have been better if they'd done some things, differently, and the anime tried to an extent by adding Gajeel and his counterpart, which was not a part of the manga.
Lily was, of course, yeah.
And there's definitely the other aspect of the ending, which I do agree with you. At the end of the day, we lost Mystigan and we got Lisana back, who was really, really not very important ever again in the series, which is unfortunate. This is a trade I would actually say, like, hey, can we, trade them back? Can we bring him back and send her
Yeah,
away again? because I feel like he was the more interesting character, whereas her role in the story had already kind of been done with at this point, and bringing her back was kind of pointless.
Yeah, I really like Lizanne, and I really cried when she came back after the Atlas arc. That was like the first time I really broke down during the series. Like I had to cry nonstop, and my parents were like, "Why are you crying?" It's like this series is killing me. But like story-wise, it would have been better if Lizana stayed dead. But it was very emotional nonetheless.
Yeah, I do think most people would agree with that. The ending reunion in the church with her and her siblings was actually something that a lot of people did like, and it was very well done. So that part is understandable.
Yeah.
So in terms of when we're talking about stuff we like and dislike, what would be the thing in fairy tale as a concept which you dislike the most?
That's a very good question, actually. Let me think. There are a lot of concepts I like, but which ones do I dislike? Mm, I think the thing with a lot of magics, it's not really clear what their reach is. Like, there's a lot of magics that could be really overpowered, but aren't. And a lot of powers that shouldn't be that strong and are really strong in the series. Like, there's no balance between them.
So you would say that the power scaling is not very well defined in this series?
Yeah, like there are powers from characters that can be like world level villain powers, but are really, yeah, I don't know, kind of nerfed in the series.
Yeah, that's very understandable. When I was on Fairy Tail Wiki, we definitely had issues trying to determine relative power levels because Fairy Tail is really not a series that has put that much work into it like stories like Naruto or One Piece and the others, and we'll certainly get to talking about those at a later point. But that's very understandable because it can break the immersion a little bit when you start asking all these questions that Mashima himself has never really seemed to answer.
Yeah, it's a good thing actually that compared to other manga writers, he actually admits that he has faults. And at the end of every manga volume, he just asks people, "Is there something you don't understand? Are there plot holes anywhere in the story?" And he just tries to answer them, or just makes joke about them. And that's a thing not many authors do. Like if you have like the Araki from JoJo's Bizarre Adventures, he's like, "Oh well, there's a plot hole. What can I do about it?"
No, you're very much correct about that. That is a thing that Mishima has tried to do in the afterwards of the volumes. Oda from One Piece, he's tried to do it from time to time, but I think Mishima's definitely tried to go more extensive about it. And you'll see that he's also very active on Twitter. And once in a while, he's made comments through that. In fact, one time he actually even referenced the Fairy Tale Wiki indirectly, saying that there are wikis that compile all the information of the series that he himself tends to forget. So don't tell anybody, but apparently he's quite grateful for our efforts, which makes us very happy.
Oh, that's really nice.
Now, I'd like to turn the topic to him. Now, obviously, Mashima is the author of the series. He's the mastermind behind everything. Before Fairy Tale, he did Rave Master. Right now, he's doing Eden Zero. Now, you've talked before about how you met him. So, what's the story behind that meeting?
Yeah, there's a really fun story. Like, I met my best friend online. I think now almost, yeah, more than 6 years ago. And I met her on Tumblr, and we were actually we matched quite immediately well because we liked Pokemon, we liked Fairy Tale. We were almost born on the same day, and we're still amazing friends. We're best friends, and um, almost 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago, she called me. She was like, "Oh, Hiro Mashima is coming to New York," and she lives in New York. And I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna try to fix a flight to New York so we can meet and go meet Mashima together. Like, we're gonna meet the one who brought us together, actually." And yeah, so and she was like, "Well, there's quite a big effort to make, maybe not." But then I actually went that far and booked a ticket from Amsterdam to New York. And I called her and was like, "I'm coming over." She was like, "No way." So I went there for a week, And on our fourth day, we went to New York Comic Con where he would be. And he wasn't there on the first day, I believe, when we went there. But we we actually ran into him. There was a little fairy tale museum, and so all of a sudden his assistant appeared, and she was like, "No one should panic here, but Mashima will be here in 2 minutes. No panic." So of course everyone panicked, and then I panicked. Of course, I was like, my mind went blank, and was like, "Am I gonna meet him right now?"
I think that's a very understandable
Yeah.
reaction.
Yeah, I was cosplaying Meredy, and I was like, "Am I gonna meet him in my cosplay?" And I was like, "Oh no!" And I turned around, and he was literally right in front of me, and and I cried so hard that my color contacts fell out. So, and he had to laugh about that because I lost the contact. And then his bodyguard was like, "Can you step aside?" I was like, "Yeah, of course, of course." And we took a group picture with him. And yeah, that was the first time we saw him. And 2 days later, we went again to New York Comic Con because it's 4 or 5 days. And there was a lottery. And if you pulled a orange ticket, you could give him a high five. And if you pulled a red ticket, you could actually meet him and have a little meet and greet. And I took part in the lottery, and I actually drew a red card, and I was like, "No way! I have a red ticket. There's no way." So I finally got the chance to meet him.
Now, what was that meeting like? What did you guys talk about?
At first, I was, of course, they asked my name, and he knew how to write my name in Japanese because there's, of course, a fairy tale character named Daphne. And he was like, "What's your favorite character?" And I was like, "Mest." And he was like, "Woo?" And I thought he was joking because, yeah, Mest erases memories, so a lot of people make that joke, like, "Who is he?" And and I thought he was joking, but he wasn't. He literally did not remember him. So his interpreter, is that the word for like he doesn't know a lot of English? So
Yeah, that would be the right translator too.
yeah, was a translator next to him, and she knew right away who I meant. So she just kept talking about things that were related to Mess. So she said, like a scar on his face, Tendru Island, he was a spy for the council, and all these kind of things. And Mashima was so confused, and I felt so guilty because this man was so confused. And but then all of a sudden, his face lit up, and he just slammed the table, and he was like, "Oh, Doornbolt!" So he remembered him by his code name, so that was really funny. And he drew him for me, so that drawing is still here on my bookshelf, and I protect it with my life. And when I actually took a poster to New York Comic Con for Hiro Mashima to give to him. It was a poster of our fairy tale cosplay group of 40 people. And he was so happy with it. And he was like, "Oh, there's so many Ersas and so many Lucys. That's so cool." And then he gave it back to me. And I just gave it back to him. And I was like, "You can keep it." And he was like, "Oh, thank you so much." And it was just, yeah, it was really funny. He gave me a happy button. So that button I also protect with my life. And yeah, it was really funny.
That is a great story. I've never had the fortune of meeting him myself, but it's always interesting to see how he interacts with fairy tale fans because, from what I understand, he's actually quite funny like that.
Yeah, actually, I don't know how to read Japanese. I only can understand it when it's being said sometimes. And when I got home, I showed the drawing Mashima made for me to my friend that introduced me to fairy tale, the one with the guild marks. Is Denise, and she actually can read Japanese. And she said, "Do you know what Mashima read on it for you?" And I was like, "No, I actually don't." And she said, "It says this is for Daphne." So that really broke my heart in a good way. It was really sweet.
That's a great story. I've never had the fortune of meeting Mishima myself, but from what I've heard about him, he seems to be a guy who really loves interacting with his fans, and he does seem to be a very funny person. he tells stories from time to time on Twitter, but on Twitter he writes in Japanese for the most part. But I don't know Japanese either, so I can't actually read it. So we've had a translator on Fairy Tale Wiki who helps us do that stuff, and it's always really entertaining to hear these stories about how he interacts with fans or even just strangers who might recognize him.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned that you're a cosplayer and that you met Mishima while wearing Merity cosplay. So tell us about that. How did you become a cosplayer?
It actually started when I went to university in 2015. I had a lot of people at my in my class actually who were all cosplaying, and I had seen cosplayers before at gaming events I went to, but I had never been to an anime convention. And they were like, "Do you like anime?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm watching a few." And they said, "Come along with us and make a costume, and we will all go cosplaying together." And I was like, "No way, I cannot do that. I'm way too anxious to do something like that." But she was like, "No, it's gonna be fun. We are all gonna dress up as Avatar characters, and you can do just Pokemon or something." So I went to the how's it called, a thrift shop, and I got some pants and a shirt, and I actually made a cosplay of Hilda from Pokemon Black and White. And because it's pretty simple to cosplay, and I could use my own hair, I didn't need a wig, and it was really fun to do. It was my anxiety was off the charts, of course, because you wear it in public transport as well before you arrive at the convention. But at the convention itself, it was so much fun. It really was. And I was like, I really, really want to do this more often. So I decided to buy my first fairy tale costume. That was Juvia. And I went to a huge convention for the first time. And there was a fairy tale gathering of around 40, 50 people. And I immediately knew that was going to be the most fun thing ever. And I would do this forever.
Now, you mentioned that you bought your first Juvia cosplay. Since then, have you continued to buy cosplays, or have you decided to try your hand at making them yourself?
Yeah, I've bought a few, but my grandma has helped me a lot with my self-made costumes. And I have a friend, Laura, and she's really great with a sewing machine, and she has helped me as well with adjusting costumes or even making some. And I really try, the ones I've made myself are just general pieces of clothing that I've adjusted to become a cosplay. But I really, really want to make something myself. So I'm currently building one of Ersa's armors, the Lightning Empress armor. And I've been working on it for 3 years now, just because I'm slow, not because it's that complicated. But it's really fun, and I've been helped by a lot of people who can give me advice on what kind of materials to use and what kind of fabrics. And it's coming along nicely. I hope it will be finished this year.
I hope so too. And it does sound like everything is coming along nicely. And it's really good that you have people who are supporting you in the background to give you advice and help guide you along. So that's going to be my next question. What advice do you have for people who are interested in cosplaying, but maybe they're not confident enough or they don't think that they have the skill for it? What would you say to them?
My advice for beginning cosplayers would be to put on your costume at home first, because it really matters how you feel in a cosplay. Because the confidence you can feel in your cosplay because you love the character so much can be stronger than the anxiety you have for wearing it. So I've been really anxious in the beginning to wear them in public, and now I just feel really confident because I really feel like I'm my character. And that's a really important aspect of cosplay, that you just don't wear a costume at random. You wear something that you want to represent because it's your favorite character, because you like the character. And it's so much more fun because when you meet people from the same series, you recognize each other and you immediately have a bond. You immediately start to talk, and that's really fun.
Yeah, I can definitely see how wearing your costume in a more private setting can help loosen your inhibitions about wearing it in a public setting like a convention. So to me, that makes total sense because obviously you want to be a little bit more comfortable before you take it out there into the world, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So you mentioned that your first fairy tale cosplay was Juvia, and you're probably most well known for doing Merity. But what are some other fairy tale cosplays that you've done?
I've actually started cosplaying Lucy last year, and she was not on my list, but a friend of mine gifted me one of her Lucy cosplays, and I was like, I never considered cosplaying her because I thought it was really different from Lucy, like in character wise. But as soon as I put her on, I was like, yeah, it really feels like Lucy, and I really love cosplaying her now. I have 3 cosplays of Lucy. I've cosplayed Ersa as well. I have done her clear heart armor, and I'm currently building the Lightning Empress armor. And I have cosplayed, let me see, I've cosplayed Mest. That was last year, not 2 years ago actually. And it was for a bet. Like, I'm the Fairy Tale Guildmaster of the Fairy Tale cosplayers in the Netherlands. And I've been organizing every major meetup at conventions since 2017. And like the 2 major conventions, I organize all the meetings. And so people call me the Guildmaster. It's really funny. And I once made a bet, like, I'm going to be Messias next year because nobody ever cosplays him. And they were like, oh, you're not going to do that. That's just not you. And so I showed up as Mest at the convention, the latest convention I actually went to. And everyone's like, no way, because they did not recognize me because, yeah, I was dressed up as a man. So they had no idea it was me. So it was really funny. And we made a lot of meme pictures.
Yeah, I can definitely see why that would probably surprise your friends. Because aside from the fact that you probably told them that you do like Mest, would you really go to the extent of dressing up as him? I think some people would probably say that you're just bluffing, but no, you clearly were very serious about it.
Everyone thought I was bluffing, and I showed up, and I even wore a T-shirt underneath my jacket that said "I messed up."
Oh, okay. That is good. That is the exact type of meme that you need to send to the Fairy Tale
Yeah,
Wiki Twitter so we can retweet that stuff. That is awesome right there.
yeah.
Now you mentioned that you're from the Netherlands, so I'm curious, what's the general cosplay and anime scene like over there?
Anime has really gotten more popular over the last few years. You can see it has become a lot more mainstream because it's also airing on Netflix, which it didn't before. And the cosplay scene is really diverse. It's mostly a lot of young people. I think a lot of teenagers, like the ages between 12 and 18, is really common. And it's really funny actually because the younger children have to bring their parents to conventions, otherwise it's illegal. So you often see like really hyped um, little cosplayers running around and their parents just being confused, like, where are we? Where did we end up? And but the ages are really diverse actually because there are also people in the 30s, 40s, 50s even, and you can really see that it's almost spans generations. Like people are raising their children with anime. I even have a friend who recently had a baby girl and she named her Sakura. Like you see the influences it already has on the next generations. And I think the meetups, like the groups of especially shonen shows like the Naruto cosplayers, the Fairy Tail cosplayers, the One Piece cosplayers, they're really close to each other in when there are meetups, and it really feels like we have a guild, and everyone is willing to help each other. If you don't know the way, if you need food, if you want a hug, there's always someone there. And what really touched me when I received the last book from Fairy Tail, the last volume, is that it said at the very end there was an afterword by Mashima, and he said, "I wish for every reader of Fairy Tail to once, at least once in their life, have a place like Fairy Tail where they can be themselves, where they are not judged, and where they are loved unconditionally." And that's really what I want to create for people at the convention when we have a Fairy Tail meetup. Like they can be at a place where they can just be themselves and nothing more.
I had never heard about that message at the end of the final volume, but I think that makes perfect sense. I mean, it definitely sounds like something Mishima would say, and I think it is actually quite accurate. We've talked before about how, people were kind of in a dark spot before Fairy Tail, and then they got out of it, and then lives kind of just became better as a result of that. And since then, I think everybody who has been a fan of the Fairy Tale series kind of relates some group of friends in their life to the Fairy Tale Guild, in that it's a fun place. It's really happy. Everybody can kind of just be themselves and not worry about like, oh, like I have to watch myself. Like, no, it's good. Everybody can just kind of go with the flow and do their own thing, and I think that's great because there's just far too much restriction placed on a lot of us these days. And I'm not talking about COVID. I think that one's an entirely separate debate, but more in our interpersonal lives.
Yeah.
So now you've also mentioned to me before that you're an archaeology student. Now, obviously, that's something that requires quite a lot of attention to be put into it, but you're also a cosplayer. You're in the fairy tale fandom quite a bit. How do you balance all those different obligations?
Yeah, I always make the joke that I made a pact with the devil and now have 30 hours in a day. Because I still don't understand myself how I can combine everything. Like I'm a full-time student, I'm a part-time retail salesperson. I have 4 horses which I train, and of course the cosplaying scene, staying up to date with anime. I'm also an artist and a piano player. I do a lot of things for fandoms, so I have actually no idea how I balance everything. I think I just put some things first when they really need to be, and put other things first when I really have the time. Like cosplay is not one of the main things. It's always placed at a higher hierarchy. I cannot explain the word.
The word is
Cosplay from
hierarchy.
yeah, I cannot pronounce the word. That's the problem.
No, it's totally okay.
Yeah, but cosplay is always on the high priority for me when there's a convention coming up, of course. Then it's really cosplay time and nothing else matters anymore.
Yeah, that makes sense too. I mean, you have different hobbies, but sometimes certain ones are going to be more important than the others. So you just kind of have to learn to prioritize, and obviously making a deal with the devil helps.
Yeah, it definitely does.
Does he just like come up to you and ask you what is it you truly desire?
Yeah, I want to do everything my heart desires in one day.
Awesome. Well, I have
Yeah,
a great show that I will recommend for you once we close out the podcast. But
nice.
as of that, that is my last question. So, Daphne, is there anything else you would like to talk about? Just, open it up.
Yeah, I don't really know. Like, I think it's really important to not be influenced by people who say the shows you're watching are crap. Like Fairy Tale for us, if it's in your heart, the series is in your heart, it really doesn't matter if the show has flaws, if the show could be better, if the show could have ended better, because yeah, it's like your favorite because you just love it so much and you love the vibes, you love the characters, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And yeah, the dedication you have to it, you shouldn't have to explain it to anyone who asks about it, because I'm pretty dedicated. After I met Hiro Mashima, I got my Fairy Tale Guild mark tattoo on my back, and whenever people ask about it, I'm like, well, this stands for all the unconditional friendships I have.
I don't think there's anybody out there who would question your dedication, and if they do, you can just kind of show them that tattoo. It's like, no, this is very much real and legitimate. So I don't think you have anything to worry about in that regard. Yeah, no, Daphne, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to be here and to share your story with us. I really appreciate it. This is what Fairy Tale Wiki Twitter Talk is all about, is getting to know our fans. I've been, on Twitter running the account for several years now. I've been in the Fairy Tale Wiki since 2012 roughly. So I've got quite a bit of experience, and for years now I've been seeing your cosplays. I think you do a fantastic job with them, and I definitely hope that you will continue doing them, when COVID ends and then you can finally start going out again. Or even if you just do them like casually in your backyard, I think no matter what, you're the kind of cosplayer who kind of inspires other people to expand their hobbies and get into what they want to get into. So I definitely think yours is an important voice in our fandom. So I'm happy to have had this opportunity to talk with you and to bring your story out there. And I will definitely help you out in the future in that regard. And I hope you will continue to follow Fairy Tale Wiki and the Fairy Tale Wiki Twitter and help us out.
Yeah, thank you very much as well. I really love being here in this interview, and yeah, I just really like to talk about fairy tale, and I'm really happy to help spread the love.
Fantastic. And speaking of spreading things, Followers, thank you for listening. We spread the love to you because we do this for you guys. If I didn't enjoy doing this, I wouldn't have brought it back after enjoying myself last year, and I did enjoy myself last year. So we've got 13 episodes planned for 2021. We're going to be running up until roughly the end of April. So I hope you guys will stick around. Our applications are still open, so if you want to be part of this, apply. We've got many more episodes ready to come out. So until then, thank you all for listening, and we all hope you guys have a great day.